Surprise! We haven't done this in a very long time.
Live.
Oh, what's happening? We didn't advertise this. It just happened. What? Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered Conversations. This is titled History Happy Hour because we're going to let loose a little bit tonight and do a very informal, we're never really formal. This is an informal one. Darren and I were talking a little bit this evening, and we decided that we haven't done this in forever and needed to catch up and just have a conversation about some historical happenings in our lives here. So if you're watching and if you see that this just popped up out of nowhere, thank you. If you watch it later, thank you. But we are really excited to have another one of these going on. Darren, welcome back, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. I've been missing this. We haven't done this for a long time.
Oh, it's been a long time.
Although you've been doing a lot of stuff lately, haven't you?
So have you? Yeah, we've. I think both of us have been rather busy, and that's a good thing to be busy. I think when we have too much downtime on our hands, that maybe we can get into some trouble there, which you and I have done in the past.
100%.
Oh yeah, but
Getting kidnapped.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's happened. I know. Poor Evan, when we were talking about that,
I
was so
know.
confused as to what we were talking about. But I was like, you just, or no, it was Josh. Josh is confused. But again, folks, thank you guys if you are tuning in to check us out tonight. We just wanted to hop on for a little bit and chat about what's been happening in our lives in the history field now that Unfiltered's back and Darren's podcast is absolutely thriving, which we really love to see. Darren, let's start out with that. Like, I mean, man, you have been a busy man. What's going on in your world with the podcasting and just the interviews you've been doing?
Yeah, so it's been quite a busy start to the year. So I wound it down a little bit in December, and then I just went full blast after Christmas. And recently I've had loads of guests on. I'm covering a lot of 160 stuff this year because, of course, it is 160 years since Ulysses S. Grant and Robert Lee met at Appomattox Courthouse, and
That's right.
the assassination of Abraham Lincoln took place. And loads of other stuff. Also, so I've done 2 podcasts there. I've managed to. I had 2 great guests come on. I had Brian Matthew Jordan, and if you don't know who Brian Matthew Jordan is, where have you been? This guy is a very, very talented man. He's actually written loads of books as well, and yeah, he's great to listen to. So he came on and explained the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And the other one was Bert Dunkley the other day as well. And Bert is
That's a good dude.
park ranger. Bert's been working for the Park Service for a long time. I think he's down in Petersburg. Is that right at the moment?
He's in Richmond.
Richmond, sorry, yeah.
He
But
lives
he's
down
been
in
all over the place, hasn't he? He's done quite a few different parks.
Yeah.
But again, another great guy. He's proper into the Revolutionary War as well, which he did remind me of. He did bring that up, which again is a sore subject. But also, I've done a podcast with Cara Matos about
Okay.
Tilly Pierce. I've done. I had a catch up with Gina in January about the Monumental Project. Of course, we've got a historic double dedication this year coming up, which is happening in October.
Mhm.
And I also had Emergency Wars Chris Mikowski on to talk about everything Stonewall Jackson. So that's coming up in May as well. So yeah, lots coming up. I've also this year going to cover Operation Dynamo, which is when they evacuated the guys off of the beach of Dunkirk. I think if the British Army doesn't get off the beach that day, we are really effed.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because there's a connection there to Dover Castle. And as you know, I have a love for Dover Castle. And I've got a fairly well-known guy coming to me to talk to me about that in the World War II stratosphere. And his name is Paul Woodidge.
Paul Woodidge.
Yeah, Paul
I
Woodidge.
know. Yes, he is fantastic. Actually,
He
I'm a fan.
he has World War II TV or something like
Mhm.
that. So I contacted him,
Mhm.
and he went, "Oh, I used to work at Dover Castle. I know lots about Sir Bertram Ramsay
awesome.
and Operation Dynamo." But just for that's on the podcasting side of things and the dedication side of things. But recently, I watched a really good TV show, which I want to get. I don't know whether you've ever. So there's book series that goes with it, and the name of it is escaping me right this moment. Hang on, let me find out what it is.
It's okay.
Oh yeah, SAS Rogue Heroes.
Okay.
So it's a BBC production. It's 6 episodes. It's from the makers of Peaky Blinders.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever watched Peaky
Familiar.
Blinders,
Haven't
yeah.
watched it all the way through, but I'm
No,
familiar.
I mean it's set in Birmingham in the 1920s, I believe.
What's
And
Jesse doing down there? He
yeah,
said,
it's
"I'm
interesting.
going to steal the Declaration of Independence." Well, don't do that. Oh, well, now he's changed it to steal. Or Jesse, what are you doing down there, man?
What are you
You're
doing there,
changing
boy?
it.
Behave. And no, but this TV series is adapted from a book, but it's about the formation of the SAS during World War II and the actions that take place in North Africa in the
Mm.
first series. And they go behind enemy lines and they start blowing up all the airfields, and it is so good. Seriously. So, one to watch, ladies and gentlemen. Go and watch that TV show. And it's nice to see the British side of the story for a change.
Absolutely. I have to check that out. As you said, is it Netflix? Did I catch that?
No, it's BBC. So,
BBC. Okay.
you'll probably get it BBC America or something like that.
Okay.
I'm not too sure.
I'll have to
But
look
look
out
out
for
for
that.
that. Yeah, it's worth a watch. I haven't watched the second series yet, but I will do.
Good.
But yeah. What about you, Tyler? I know you've got lots planned and lots of
I
podcasts coming up.
I do. And it's honestly, it's extremely humbling to be back. I wasn't really myself during that hiatus, if you will. This is something that I really, really cherish and love. Like sitting in traffic all day just absolutely blows. And so to come home and have something like a podcast and some great history to just like delve into as soon as I get home has always been something I've looked forward to. It was like a missing link, man. Like not having that opportunity to come home and do that has been really bumming me out. So to be able to be back and have this opportunity to do that again has been awesome. Which is why you're seeing so many booked. We've missed out on so many cool things, and I wanted to get ahead of the game. And I started looking at some of these new great titles coming out, and looking at the authors that are writing these things. And I'm like, hey, I would love to have you on to highlight some of the books that are coming out here. And I've had a few of them on already. One of my favorite podcasts that I've ever done, two actually. The first one would be a guy by the name of Mike, good friend of mine. He wrote a book all about. This is Michael Albrecht, by the way. I should mention the last name. Michael Albrecht wrote a book about Thomas Jefferson and the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom, which is something that I had zero inkling about. I've lived here my entire life and really haven't kind of understood that Jefferson formulates this document here in Fredericksburg. And Michael was just a wealth of knowledge. So to have him on and to share that story here was something that I'm very thankful for. And then as an Italian American, of course, we have an interest, if you will, into some of the happenings of the American Mafia. So Lou came on, Lou Ferrante. He was known for an old show on, I believe it was Discovery Channel called The Gangster's Code. He was the producer of that show, and he actually was a Mafia insider, so had spent some time as an associate with the Mafia, and then went to prison and reformed himself, and in prison became a historian of all things. And so to have him on to tell that story and the story about writing a trilogy on the American Mafia, that was just something that I did not foresee coming this year. And it was incredible to hear the stories that he has and the connections he was able to make with these books and some things that I guess you say he was very myth dispelling. Like he was able to go in and dispel so many myths surrounding the American Mafia that we know today, because everybody claims to have shot this person or robbed this person or done that, and he really came in and cleared some of that up for us, which was really really cool.
I do find that early history of the mafia quite interesting.
Yeah, and
It's
like he
interesting.
brought so many things up.
Some interesting characters around during that period.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
government figures too.
I mean,
That was
I used to watch a TV show called Boardwalk Empires, and
hmm
a lot of those characters were featured in that TV show, like
yes,
Lucky Luciano, and
hmm
obviously
Nucky
Al Capone.
Thompson.
Yeah, Nucky Thompson
Hmm.
and all that. And they were real people. Obviously,
Yes, they
this
were.
TV show's fictional, but that interesting period of prohibition when alcohol was completely banned. And
And I'll tell you what, watching Steve Buscemi play a serious character, so like, of course, he
yeah,
did
that
it in
was
The
difficult
Sopranos
at
too.
first.
It was because I'm waiting for him to just be like sausage McMuffin from one of his
Yeah.
His
He's got
Adam
a
Sandler
very
film.
distinctive voice, hasn't he?
He does. He's into the Civil War too. He actually has a
Really?
Fredericksburg connection. Yeah, there was a video done a while ago, and it's escaping me from where I found it. But I'm sure if you go on YouTube and look up Steve Buscemi Fredericksburg, you'll find it. But I think he has an ancestor that fought at Fredericksburg in the Civil War, so in December of 1862.
Oh wow.
Pretty cool. Yeah, there's something. I really wish I had it. I shouldn't just throw that out there. But there is something that I have seen where Buscemi has had some type of connection with the Battle of Fredericksburg, whether it be an ancestor or maybe an interest. I'm not quite sure. But there is something there.
Nice.
So some upcoming stuff. I know we were talking about that. I have one of, I think, the most anticipated podcasts on its way in April. April 2nd, I have Michael Hardy on to talk about feeding Lee's army in Northern Virginia again, which is just such a fascinating topic. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
who talks about that? We just had Todd Rhodes on, and speaking of, Todd just commented.
Oh
Todd,
yeah, nice one, Todd.
Cicero, Illinois, Al Capone was our most famous resident. You don't say. Al Capone, huh? Guy sounds familiar. I wonder who he is. He just name rings a bell.
How's the so how's the fort and all that going, Todd? Is that
Mhm.
what you came on to talk about?
Oh yeah, if you get a chance, Darren, go back and watch it. He came on and knocked it out of the park with Battery White, man. That was an awesome
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah, we did. We had a great talk about that, and I learned so much. And I have a book that he presented me from Battery White that is just awesome to read through. And I've learned more from Todd himself just talking to him about Battery White than I could reading any book that's out there, because Todd knows his stuff and he presents it so well that it's just very, very great to grasp. So Todd did fantastic. I was really happy to have him on, and I told him if there's any more developments with Battery White, he needs to come back and let us know. He's always got an open invitation to the show.
Awesome.
Oh, Todd, it was
Very good.
absolute pleasure. We're glad to have you on, man. But yeah, so Hardy's coming on next on April 2nd. So a little bit of a break for the rest of March. This being an exception, this is awesome that we were able to do this. But for the rest of March, we have a little bit of a break. And then April 2nd, we pick right back up and we've got Michael Hardy on to talk about, again, Feeding Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, which is published through one of the best publishers out there, Savage Beatty. And this book, I'm really excited for because I like these tactical studies and these like logistical kind of studies that come out of Savage Beatty. And that's something we don't talk about.
Yeah,
What
I
are
think
they?
logistics is forgotten about. And
Yeah.
I always try and think about it. So, say for instance, if you think of Fredericksburg, the Battle of Fredericksburg, for instance, so what are the Union Army? 120,000 men, and you've got to feed and clothe all these men, and
Right.
and everything else that goes with it. It's not just that. There's horses and mules and everything that pulls that stuff. I just don't. I just can't fathom
It's
it. And then obviously, I know the Confederate Army is a bit smaller, but again, I had a great guest on once on one of my podcasts, Jim Hessler, great Jim Hessler from Gettysburg, and he said if you want to try and imagine how big an army is, he said look at like either a soccer stadium or a football stadium.
I'm glad he didn't say Yankee Stadium.
No, or Yankee Stadium. But if you look at, so if you're saying 60,000 people in a stadium, and if you've ever been in a stadium and you try and go out of that stadium afterwards, you know how difficult it is to move.
Yeah.
So he said that he used that sort of analogy of trying to get me to vision what it would be like for something that size. And I don't think you'd ever understand how big that is. And also the way they moved, we're talking 19th century roads.
Which were
awful to
shite,
move around.
say the very least.
As Burnside will find out, as you know.
I've been reading a lot about that man recently. Oof. And
Oh,
not in Fredericksburg. Not in Fredericksburg.
that was the other good episode I had as well. I had Derek Brown from Bentonville Historic
Ooh.
Site come on.
And we're on the 160th of that.
Here we are. So that came out yesterday, that episode.
Very cool.
But yeah, that was fantastic. North Carolina, I mean,
I actually just read about Burnside getting canned today from, canned, sent back home. Burnside didn't do too great in the crater, according to Meade and Grant. And
he didn't do very well.
no,
That was his last dance.
And, part of me, I don't want to say I'm sympathetic to Burnside because maybe for some parts of the war I am. But I feel for the guy. Like, I'm starting to see that the fault necessarily doesn't lie entirely with Burnside at the crater. As crazy as that sounds, and if you read Campaign of Giants, you'll know what I'm talking about, Volume One, and I'll segue into that in a minute. But if you look at what happens at the crater, and I'm sorry to go all over the place with this, but if you can, you zero back into the crater for a second. Burnside gets the plans that he has honed in on and almost, I don't want to say perfected, but made very sound, ripped out from under him, and forces someone like James Ledley,
Who should have been sacked
100%.
because I believe he had an incident before that, didn't he, where he should have.
He liked to have more of these than we have for history
He
happy
was the
hour. I can tell
culprit,
you
yeah.
that. Yes, he was.
I think there was an event, and I don't know where it was, but a little way before, earlier in that year, I believe. I'm sure of it. And
North Anna River.
he should have been sacked there and then.
Yes,
And
it
for
was in
some
North
reason,
Anna.
he slipped through the net, and you putting him in charge of all these men doing this important mission. And then, of course, the other side of things is those USCT that were trained to do that job, and the fact that Grant and Meade,
Yes,
did not want to do that, didn't want to go through with that plan. Well, they're trained to do that mission.
heavy
So-
emphasis on Meade. It seems that Meade was more responsible. Now, Meade had to obviously consult Grant, but from what I've been gathering, and I'm not just referencing one book, I've actually had to pull a few of my crater references, and including the ORs, to kind of look at some of these things that are happening with that decision. And it looks like Meade made the decision and asked Grant to back him up with that decision. Because Burnside comes over and is like openly insubordinate with Meade, like almost like screaming and cursing at him, which is very uncharacteristic for Burnside to be
And
doing.
is that because obviously because he am I right in saying that at one stage during '64, Burnside is he basically outranks people, so he has to have his own command or something.
Yes, the
So
Ninth
is there
Corps is
that
independent.
hierarchy there as well, that jealousy and of
Mhm.
somebody outranking each
So,
other.
and Meade may confide to his wife later and say whatever the hell he wants to say to his wife, but in theory here, like Meade is almost directly responsible for the outcome of the crater. I know that's a crazy claim to just throw out there, but if you look back at what's happening and how this plays out, Meade is really kind of the one to pull him back first, because Grant's not initially saying no, 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 the USCTs aren't going in. Meade makes that call. I think Meade makes that political call, and that's exactly what it is. It's a political call because the fallout from the USCTs attacking into the crater first, and then if it fails, them being the ones going in first, that could be some huge political blowback. Todd, yes, by the way, you are absolutely right. Ledley attacked at North Anna without orders. Ledley's just crazy.
And he was drunk at that event as well, I believe.
But you're right. I mean, Meade does kind of deserve the fault for the crater because there was a plan in place. There was some intense training involved with Ferrero and all of the USCTs and some of these other guys leading them into the crater. It wasn't going to be an assault into this giant pit. There was going to be some movements around to sort of envelop the Confederate lines in order for the attack to be successful. You don't run into a crater, obviously. You go around what is that word? Exploit the lines, and just you're able to really hold it better by capturing more, by going both left and right to their flanks and enveloping the Confederate lines. But instead, they get pulled last minute, and it ends in absolute disaster for the Union Army there. And again, I haven't had the most extensive research. You and I have done a fun, awesome day at the crater.
That was
On the 160th of all days. Like we were there on the day that
we were the only ones there. There was nobody else there.
It was insane to see.
You know, it's one of the biggest things that happens in the American Civil War, and there's nobody there. You know, it's disappointing.
Grant said that was the saddest affair of the entire war.
I mean,
even over Cold Harbor, that was the saddest affair of the entire war. He may regret what happened to Cold Harbor, but for Grant to come out and say that that was the saddest affair really speaks on that. You know,
I mean, what an alarm clock that was for everybody that was there that morning.
I'll tell you, I wish I had the knowledge I do talking to you right now about the crater when we filmed that.
But you guys did a great job, I will say that. You and Tim blew it out of the ballpark, and Gina as well. You know, of her information that she added. about the
She brought
two
some
Brits.
stuff I would have never known.
I mean, she really did her research there, and I'll give her that. I chucked that in her lap, and she just went and did it, you know.
Yeah, but
And
that
so, yeah, that was a fantastic day and
was a
a
special
great
day.
video, which you can see on Emergency of War's YouTube channel. Go and watch that, you know.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
I say June 30th on accident in that. I do have to. I thought that was going to get corrected. It didn't. So if you see that, it's July 30th, not June 30th. Just a
There you
heads up.
go. I thought
Yeah.
you corrected that out. I thought,
No, they put the picture over it, but didn't put the
you're
July
joking.
30th is still there. No, it's still there. It still says June 30th.
Oh,
I'm like,
never mind. Nobody noticed.
sorry. Well, if you notice it and someone questions it, it's July 30th.
Sometimes we do get things wrong. We say the wrong thing. I've done it loads of times or the wrong day. You
I
know,
was
so
on a roll, man.
recently I did a podcast with, and I know we're going to revisit this. The JFK files are going to be opening up. Unfortunately,
up.
he was
They're
supposed
up.
to come on. He couldn't make it, unfortunately, for the
I
first
know.
episode. But you're going to come on for the next episode because obviously you've got some really good information about the connections between JFK and the mafia.
Yeah.
But we had a fantastic conversation during that period, during that podcast about all of that stuff. It was fantastic, and
It was fun.
so hopefully you can come on the next episode and we can.
I hope so. I enjoyed watching it, so I would very much love to be a part of that because the episode that I did with Lou Ferrante, Lou goes into some very extensive claims about that whole ordeal in Dallas in 1963. There are some things that you would not believe that are very public that tie into that. I mean, for God's sakes, JFK's father and the mafia were very close, and that's again very open knowledge. And as time continues to go on, more things are released. Like, I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't know that the mafia and the FBI worked together to secure the docks and stations in New York City in World War II against Mussolini and Germany, and the fact that Lucky Luciano was working for the United States Navy. Like, nobody talks about that. And there
Oh
are
wow! I
yeah,
didn't
there
know
are.
that. Yeah,
We should do an episode about that one day. Yes, Operation
interesting.
Underworld.
Yeah, very
Awesome,
interesting.
awesome World War II connection with the mafia. Lucky Luciano helped the U.S. Navy to protect the docks against any espionage or attacks that could potentially happen on the
Yeah,
East
so
Coast.
obviously the mafia are active during that period, aren't they? During
Mhm.
World War II. So now, do some of those guys go and actually serve in the
Hey,
US
MJ.
forces? Hi, MJ.
So
Nice to see you.
yes and no. So Vito Genovese, who owns the Genovese crime family later on in the American history here, he actually ends up back in Italy during World War II. And it's really interesting because he's got this like dual lifestyle over there where he is friends with Mussolini and he then becomes very close with the United States again and ends up back here to excel in the American mafia. But he was also excelling before that because he was bumping shoulders with like Frank Costello. There's actually a movie coming out quite about that. And Todd, you are 100% right. Lucky controlled the Longshoremen Union, and that's exactly what starts the Operation Underworld, if you will. That's why the Department of the Navy at the time decided that maybe we need these mobbed up guys to help
Well,
protect the
obviously, a
shores.
lot of these guys, these older gangsters, would have had connections to Italy anyway. So, I mean, they must have been worried for their family at the time because
Yeah,
obviously
Mussolini was actually
he's a
like
horrible guy.
he was killing mafia members and really going after them upon his ascent to power. I was fortunate enough early in the year, I read this extensive biography on Mussolini and then followed that up with Mussolini's Italy, two great books. And the author's name is escaping me right now, but there are two fantastic books. If you guys are ever interested, I know it's a weird topic, but Mussolini had a very dynamic rise to power. And something that people do not talk about either is that Hitler modeled his rise to power off of Mussolini's rise to power, even down to the damn Nazi salute. That came from Mussolini. So Mussolini was actually Hitler's role model. Not these guys are still terrible people. I'm not over here praising them by any means, but it's just interesting to see how these tyrannical figures and these fascist figures rise to power. And
I find that very interesting.
it is. I mean, and it's very
I
just
watched quite a few TV shows to do with that. Also, there's many other people behind those people, but and there's a great TV show called Hitler's.
circle of evil.
No, yeah, that's a good one. That's on
It is.
Netflix. But there's one called The Rise of the Nazis on BBC. which is very, very good. But there was one called no, I can't remember what it's. Oh yeah, Hitler's Engineers. It's called. I think it was a
Ooh.
history. So it basically goes through all of the different people and their different roles. And Albert Speer was one of
Mhm.
them. And of course, one of the episodes was about the rocket. And of course, this guy ends up working for NASA.
I have his memoirs on cue to read at some point.
Van, what's his name? Van something. Can't remember his name. But he
Not Van Buren. Walter
he
von
was
Braun or Warner
yeah
von Braun. Warner von
yeah
Braun.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's the the father of rocket technology.
And
Now
he
this
gets
guy
saved by
was a
the
full
U.S.
blown Nazi member, and they seem to forget that when he came across the pond and set up base there. And, well, of course, there you go. I think they were going to do something just before he died or something, but or he was going to be prosecuted for something because he'd
Should have
committed
been.
more crimes. Albert Speer was a really interesting one because it goes into like details of how they were going to completely knock down Berlin and change it. So he's
Germania.
like the
That's right.
architect,
It was going to
fascinating
be
stuff.
a marble white city, this huge ordeal. Yeah, you're not
And of
wrong
course,
though.
Speer was then also tasked, I believe, with the factory side of things and the mass production of everything that the Nazi Germany needed. And obviously, he was telling porky pies to Adolf Hitler at that point, I believe, saying that we're producing this, but they weren't producing anything. Of course, the Allies kept bombing the factories, and but
Yeah.
it's a very, very interesting period, one that I seem to go down quite often at the moment.
I have found myself in. I've amassed a collection of World War II era German titles, and my big fascination doesn't necessarily. And it's weird because I've gravitated a lot recent days to political histories. That's kind of been what I've focused on. I mean, traditionally, I'm very into military history and things that happen in the militaristic eras. But political history has been my thing. But I always find myself back in the military field too. And the German side, the Bismarck, that's kind of one of the ones that I've really found myself going into lately. And I even picked up a book that was published by the Naval Academy in the U.S. But the author was a lieutenant on the Bismarck. So it's a primary source, and again, this is only 80 years ago, maybe 80 plus now. But this is a fresh perspective in terms of primary sources because when I'm used to saying primary sources, we're talking about memoirs that are close to 160 years old with the Civil War, right? But to have somebody that served on the Bismarck write
Hmm.
a personal history about that ship. I haven't cracked the spine on that yet. It is a used book because it's hard to find that new today, but that's one that I'm really interested in diving into here in the future. I've
Yeah,
got
I
a
know
list
you've
like
been
this
down a
tall.
World War II rabbit hole since Christmas, haven't you?
And it's on, sadly, right now on pause just because there are some titles that have come out that are absolutely encapsulating my mind right now. And if you don't mind, I'm going to segue into this
Yeah,
now
go
since
for
we
it.
got it.
Let us know what you're reading.
There are two books right now that I am currently reading slash reviewing. Number one that I have been waiting for a long, long time, and I know it's backwards, but it's Campaign of Giants Volume 2 from the creators of Aftermath to Burgess Mill by A. Wilson Green, who will be on the podcast in April. So make sure you guys stick around to watch him come on and talk about this book. I have not fully read Campaign of Giants Volume 1 until yesterday. So I just finished that yesterday and I just started this today. Uh, one of the best narrative histories I've ever read. And I am perfectly okay with saying that. Will Green has absolutely just done this campaign justice. Petersburg is one that's really hard to follow. You have 290 plus days of fighting in so many different areas and so many different theaters, if you will. And he has done just a remarkable job at trying to explain exactly what's happening in this campaign. Whether you believe it's a siege or a campaign, that's up to you. And read what Will has to say before you make that judgment, of course. But Will is just one of those writers that can tell a great story, provide all the great facts that you need to understand, and not get bogged down into the weeds of things, which I think helps readers to really follow along. Because I will tell you, as many times as I've been to Petersburg, including with you, I haven't had the greatest grasp on what goes on on the Eastern Front.
There's just too much. There's too
Oh,
much.
there is. But when I go back now to the Eastern Front, I'm going to have equipped now just a great
Don't you
understanding.
think it's nearly what 9 months of
Yeah.
action,
And
and so it's so many different things that happen during that 9 months. I
there
know there's a
are.
lot of time where nothing happens, of course, but
Right. But even when nothing's happening, there are
there's
still
something
the
happening. Yeah,
think World War One. And he writes about that in closing with Campaign to Giant, or
and
not closing, but before the crater. You're talking what he was writing about made me think of the Western Front in World War One because he's talking about men lying in trenches, being under constant artillery fire, having to dig individual dugouts inside these trenches so that they could go into these shelters. Officers are building larger scale dugouts so that they can have protection from the daily shelling that's going on. The weather plays an impact, so you're building blankets over your trenches to try to shield you from the sun. And if you pop your head out, you're as good as dead.
and Central Virginia's sun is punishing.
We learned that at Fredericksburg.
It's awful. Yeah,
We did. We went to even
yeah,
just Fredericksburg. You and I and Gina went out to the
yeah.
cemetery, and there were
Oh yeah,
moments where
it's
I was like,
punishing. Yeah,
I'm sitting down.
yeah, hundred
All right.
percent.
Todd has a great comment. Last weekend, I was at Mount Carmel Cemetery outside Chicago. Most Chicago's famous gangsters are buried there, including Al Capone, Frank Capone, Ralph Capone, Vincent Trucci, Sam Giancana. That's a big name. Oh. Jenna Brothers, Sam, Vincenzo, Pete, Bloody Angelo, Antonio, and Mike the Devil, Jake Lingle, murder journalist and mob associate Antonio Lombardo, Chicago mobster and consigliere to Al Capone, Machine Gun Jack. Holy cow. A beer baron rival of Al Capone and wrongly convinced through Capone's influential Earl Jaime Weiss. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, so Todd, what are we going to do a tour of this?
Yeah.
When are we going to do that? Because that sounds fascinating.
Todd, is this your side hustle? Italian gangsters and the mafia.
It's certainly mine. I would be wrong to say that I have a separate bookshelf, and this is my. Here's going to be my confession here. Recently, when we moved into this new place, my fiance and I got a new bookshelf, new to us, but one that has these great sliding glass doors. And you would think all of
They'll
my
fill up
Civil
quick.
War titles, it's full. But you would think again, all my Civil War titles, or all my Revolutionary War titles, or even hell, my World War II titles would go in there. Shelf to shelf are mafia stories, Italian histories, because that's something that it may not be my go to with everything, but something as an Italian American that's really important to me is our history and being here in the country and like just what Italians have had to endure and what Italians have done too. I mean, because Italy's a beautiful country, beautiful history, beautiful things come out of that, but she does have a bad son. She has the mafia, and it's something that fascinates me that it was almost a survival thing for in the U.S. And that's a whole nother podcast for another day. But yeah, Darren, my supposed Civil War shelf that was supposed to be my most sacred Civil War books ended up being just an entire shelf of mob history and Italian histories. So
Wow, nice.
yeah,
But like you said, I remember you. I remember you many years ago when I first met you, telling me that you had some connection to that.
yeah, we have. So my family came over from Italy, and there, no guarantees of who, what, when, where, why, but there have been some familial stories passed down, and I don't want to dive into it too much, just because
Do they do a good spaghetti and the meatballs?
just Sunday's an 8 hour sauce, man. Yeah, we do a good spaghetti. No meatballs, just ground sausage in a
Oh,
way.
fair enough.
Yes,
That sounds good enough for me. Anyway, what are you drinking there, young man? Are you drinking anything nice?
I
Oh
don't think
no,
you're gonna like it.
because you're drinking that. What's his name? That Tyrant. Yeah. No, I actually quite like that beer. Actually,
It's good. Yeah, it's a great American beer. It tastes like tea sometimes.
tastes like shit. No,
Yeah.
what is
Since
anyway,
we've last been on
actually,
together, I got to dump tea in the river
well, you
since
could
I've last seen you
enjoy
on the
it
podcast.
around. Yeah. So obviously, who else have you got coming up on your podcast? Because now you've got quite a few lined
I
up, haven't
do.
you?
We have another gentleman. Again, I feel horrible for the name escaping me at the moment, but a book about William Kidd, Captain Kidd, if you will, who was you Brits did not like him because even before the revolution, oh, he was taking your ships and holding y'all hostage and stealing your shit.
Oh, was he now?
Yes, he was. He was a pirate. Well, the author is going to try to argue that he's not a pirate. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with him coming up, and that's going to be in May. But yeah, Captain Kidd didn't like the Brits, the crazy colonial. Like, what gives with that?
Didn't he get did he get hung?
I have to find out on the podcast.
I'm pretty sure
I
it was
don't know. I haven't read the book yet.
yeah,
It's on my to be read pile because
Captain
obviously,
Kidd. I've heard of that name. I think he
yes,
gets hung in London.
it wouldn't surprise me.
I mean,
But yeah.
if you're travelling those routes, you're going to end up in the ports in London. I mean, London was full of, you know, people.
What are you drinking, by the way? Since we're
Me,
talking
I
about
am drinking
yes.
a BrewDog Elvis juice, and it's a grapefruit infused IPA.
Okay.
So yeah, it's quite nice.
I bet Chris would like the fact that it's called Elvis
Oh yeah,
juice.
he's actually
Yeah.
drunk that.
Did he
So
try it?
yeah, so we were walking back from St Paul's Cathedral down to the Tower of London area, Tower Hill, because we needed to get a tube. And the BrewDog have a bar just in the middle there. And so we stopped there for something to eat. And of course, straight away he saw that and he's like, yeah, I have
Yeah.
to drink. And yeah, we had 2 pints of that. So the
Awesome.
food was pretty damn good in there as well. But Tyler,
Yes.
next year is the 380th anniversary of the
Yes, it
Battle of
is.
Great Torrington, which happened on Monday, February the 16th, 1646. And sorry about the accent.
That was Al.
And
You were channeling your Al, and I love it.
I'm trying to get and convince, and I don't think it took much convincing, but I'm trying to get Tyler to come over and take part in the celebrations of that, and obviously come over to the UK for the first time. So hopefully he can make it.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me because it's a commitment that we've decided. When you offered that the first time, me and my fiance went over that, and we're like, you know what? I think this would be a great vacation to start off the year. Who needs a beach? I live within 2 hours of Virginia Beach, which isn't the greatest place to go vacation, but it's a vacation spot. But I'm not a beach person, anyways. There's mountains and battlefields.
I mean,
Uh,
it'll be dull
yeah,
and grey that time of year, but never mind. Hey, we
that's
get to drive
okay.
past Stonehenge, so
See, and that's I've never been abroad. I've never been overseas, and for the UK to be my first stop. Well, technically Dublin. It looks like Dublin's going to be a layover overnight for our first
oh,
trip
you
date.
cheeky sods. I reckon Terry
Yeah,
Redknapp planned that, didn't he?
yeah. I've got to have Terry with me for that, so that's going to be
Well, you
fun.
get a proper pint of Guinness there.
Well, you think
But
there's going to
you'll
be
get to
one
go,
pint?
go down to Great Torrington and meet all the crazy locals down there.
I'm
Um,
excited. And Al is a legend. I'm a fan of his punk rock music. Cult Maniacs are awesome. Love, love, love his music. So even just that aside, but his passion for history and telling the story of Great
oh,
Torrington is another
100%.
another
Yeah.
admiration I've got for the guy. So I'm tremendously excited to meet him.
You know what was really cool when I went there recently? I mean, he's had them for a couple of years, but he had 2 American Civil War pictures on his wall. One is a print from Harper's Weekly of, and it's in a really nice frame as well, of Fort Fisher.
Oh, no kidding.
So he was like, Darren, you want to take this home with you? And I went, yeah. And I kept saying every year I'll take it home with me. And he also had a picture of some Civil War general, but I don't know who the hell it is. Got no idea. I haven't got it on me at the moment, so can't show you. But anyway, it's up on my wall finally.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah. And my missus was not very happy. But I
I
have my
know
own.
the
I
feeling.
have a little Civil War corner, where I have my little Civil War books and history books, and yeah. But it's such a great event. But recently, I mean, the town have been coming out to celebrate, but we haven't had much there in the way of reenactors coming down. But because it is the 380th, we have to celebrate. When are you
Right
going
on.
to get to celebrate that again? And it's such an
380th is
important
only
event
once.
in the events of the English Civil War because it brings that first Civil War to an end. And not only that, Charles II is actually in Cornwall at the time, and he's a threat to Parliament because although his father's has been incarcerated at that point, he is the heir to the throne of England, and Britain. Sorry, so. It's an important battle that happens there. And there's a guy with him as well called Hugh Peters, that travelling along with Sir Thomas Fairfax, and he's a religious nut. Now he's actually in US history. He actually goes over to the colonies, and he's actually involved in the founding of Salem, Massachusetts, I believe.
No kidding.
point. And he's also heavily involved in the plot to have Charles I executed, tried and executed. But not only that, there's a great story that Al always tells me on the way down to Great Torrington. They were going to Exeter. Actually, that's where the Royalists were held up in the city of Exeter. Of course, Plymouth was important as well. Plymouth, massive port at that point. And they come past Stonehenge. Now he's a proper Puritan. He's proper religious nut. And he says to Thomas Fairfax, he says, "Give me some gunpowder, and I will go and blow up that horrible structure over there, which is Stonehenge." Because its symbolism is paganism, and of course he's
He's
like,
not
no,
all for that. Yeah.
firstly, I need the gunpowder. I've got a siege coming up, so I need it. And secondly, you're not blowing up Stonehenge. So if Hugh Peters had his way, he would have blown up that amazing thing, a stone circle.
So we wouldn't have had this cool thing to go see then.
No. And then later on, though, he does get his comeuppance because he is on the warrant for Charles I. And when Charles II comes back, everybody, including Oliver Cromwell and Bradshaw, who was the chief prosecutor that was on the warrant, was executed. And so he got a grisly death. He got hung, drawn, and quartered. Hugh Peters.
Ooh, that's not fun.
He got what was coming to him, but and Cromwell, as you know, was dug up from his grave and he was beheaded. He actually buried himself, or got himself buried in Westminster Abbey, which did not go down well. So then his head went on this journey, which is another story for another day.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
Torrington's just a fascinating place, and they love their history. Going off the sidetrack, I mean, people don't know this, but Torrington actually had a glove factory as well, and apparently, at one point during history, gloves were made in Great Torrington. So, gloves were people wore them driving and stuff like that. So, they had this huge operation down there of making gloves.
So that begs the question: do they have a glove museum in Great Torrington?
They do. Well, they do. They have a collection in their Torrington Museum. Yeah,
they have the gloves.
And the Torrington Museum is fascinating. There's also a tragic story of an orphanage that burnt down in the 1920s as well, and everyone inside died, which I learned about once when I went down there. But obviously, the English Civil Wars, or the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, is the real, real thing they like to commemorate and keep the story going. Is that
Speaking of the English Civil War, didn't our friend Noel describe a few things over here
I went there in the summer, so St Mary's City, and it's fascinating because what was great as well, and it's really weird how my world works, but I seem to be on this path and I seem to meet people accidentally or on purpose, I don't know. But there was this young girl, she was doing the gardening, and me and Gina were a bit lost, and we couldn't find this sign for this English Civil War battle that took place St Mary's City, Maryland, down the peninsula there near Lookout. Was it Point Lookout?
Point Lookout.
Prison camp was. And we came across and we said, where's this English Civil War battle? She went, well, I can tell you about that. I know all about that. Anyway, it turns out she is a direct ancestor of the guy that founded the town of St Mary's City. Now, St Mary's City was founded as a Catholic settlement. Of course, as you know, at the time, a lot of the settlements were Protestant, so the guy down the road didn't like that, and he came up and burnt the town. And so technically, it happened during the English Civil War. So it was an English Civil War battle, but it wasn't in a way, although the town folk were loyal to Charles I. And so there's always that connection between, although Charles I and the King of England were supposed to be a devout Protestant, they were married to a Catholic queen. So there was always that worry in the English population that the Catholics are going to do something, and that's the way they fought. And so that is how they, fought even when they went to the New World. They saw the Catholics as a threat. And so they always put the Catholic people were always put with Charles as part of that, movement in a way. And so, But yeah,
You
as
know,
far
I've
as,
got a funny connection to that too. One that I haven't ever told you before, and something maybe you and I should go and see the next time you're here in the across the pond, if you will. Um, there is a island in Maryland, just outside of where I spent a decent part of my childhood. Well, I shouldn't say decent; it was up until kindergarten. But me, my father, my brothers, and my mom we used to have a boat, and we would go ride from Colonial Beach, Virginia, to this little island called St. Clement's Island. Now, St. Clement's Island has this giant white cross monument on it because Maryland, technically speaking, was founded on this little tiny island, and the Catholics were the ones to make their way there first.
they was,
And
yeah, they founded
the
it. They
family
basically found
connection,
Maryland, yeah.
yes, the family connection actually comes from the Civil War era. Uh, I have a family line named McFreeman or Freeman on my grandmother's side. It changes a bit. There's Josephine Freeman, who is a lighthouse guard during the Civil War at Blackistone Lighthouse. And this lighthouse was right there. Booth had to have come very close to this island in order to get across to Virginia, even. But this island is just a very small nondescript piece of land that exists right in St. Mary's County. And technically speaking, again, when the English came over and settled and the Catholics came over and Maryland was founded, I think Calvert was the gentleman that was along
Yeah,
with them.
that's the one. Yeah, so she is
Yeah,
directly descendant of him.
no kidding. Yeah,
No
so my
kidding.
family
I
isn't part
couldn't
of the.
believe it. I thought, no way, no way. So we pulled her aside and we said, "Can we do a video?" And I think she said 1636 that it was founded. That
That's not Evelina, is it?
I don't know what her name was. I can't
No.
remember.
Okay.
No, and the funny thing is, her. This is what is really weird. Is her surname is the same surname, obviously, as my best friend here in
Really?
the UK. His name is Chris Pitkin, and her name is Carly Pitkin.
No kidding.
And I just went, "You were kidding!" I
Yeah.
swore at that point. I went, "No way!" Like, you know, I just the way world works sometimes is.
Looks like Todd just invited us to Charleston
Yeah,
when you
I'm
come back.
going.
I
I
think
want
that
to
needs
go.
to happen because
Definitely.
Fort Sumter, but Battery White.
Oh man, I'd
We
love
also
to
got to
see
go see
Fort
Battery
Sumter.
White. I want to
Yeah.
go see where
and
Dahlgren
and
was
and
sunk.
Charleston has got a great colonial history too, hasn't it?
Hmm.
You know,
It does. The
very, very
Revolutionary War in the backcountry. That's a hell of a
mm,
topic that you and I should go into one day. Have
mm.
you ever done anything with the backcountry in the Revolutionary War?
Sounds interesting
So
though.
it's almost a civil war in itself because it's colonists or the Continental Army fighting against loyalists, fighting against natives, fighting against British. It's this huge thing that we're so enthralled with what happens in the North in Yorktown, which I still have that picture of you at Yorktown
But anyway, yeah,
somewhere on here. Yeah,
a little plug
yeah,
for St Mary's City.
that
It's a
one.
little, oh yeah, that one. I love that picture.
And
You
then,
still got that? You wankers. Anyway,
sorry.
um, yeah, no. So going back to St Mary's City though, it's they're renovating the area at the moment, and they're building a new visitors centre. It's very much in the way of Jamestown. That sort of visitors site type place. They're trying to make it sort of tempting for people to go visit, but of course the Catholic side of things. But
That would be
again,
cool to see.
when that story's told, because Virginia's very Protestant, isn't it? It's
Yes, it is. Anglo-Saxon too.
yeah, yeah.
Very Anglo.
But it was a fascinating, and that's why we were late, and that's the same day we met you at the crater.
That's right.
Because we were very fashionably late, and I was going, Gino, we need to move.
You know
They've
who
also
else is fashionably late?
Yeah. Oh, he is. Yes. Well, there he stands like a
And
stone wall. Oh look! Oh, don't put up that other one. The
oh,
one that looks like a. Oh no!
that one.
Yeah, you know
But
what?
since we're on this topic, I have one more to share.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's in
Nice.
London.
Those
So,
are
oh
ones that
yeah,
stay in my arsenal.
I forgot to say,
Hmm.
we have got the pleasure of entertaining Rob Orison at the Roundtable UK
That's
this
right.
year, and so
He's
he's
coming
coming
out to
over.
speak.
And hopefully I have got a day spare, but we haven't. I don't know whether we're going to be able to do anything, but I'm
Oh,
hoping to go and meet him up in London, and I want to go and show him George Washington. And,
Francis Marion lived next door
self-
to Belle
selfie with him.
Isle. Peter Horry owned Belle Isle Plantation, where Battery White is located. Todd, you're selling us hard on this Battery White trip, man. I think we're gonna have to do that.
Todd, I need to win the lottery, mate.
I know the next time you come over, we're just gonna get in my car, Darren, and we're gonna book a hotel instead of staying up here, and we're gonna go down south, and we're gonna do Sherman, we're gonna do Charleston.
No,
That's
no
what
two
we should
ways
do.
about it. If we had the money,
I know.
ladies and gentlemen, we would have a TV show where we toured all the battlefields, and I don't know what it would be called, but it would be a lot of drinking involved. Being
It'd be
kidnapped.
fun. Yeah.
It'd be like one of those, it'd be like a
I
documentary.
still can't believe that happened.
But we would literally go to everything, but we just haven't got the money.
No, that's the thing, finance, and we do this free because
I want to go to every site. I want to go to the west. I want to go and see Fort Donaldson, and I know you can't see Fort Henry because it's underwater.
Right.
But I want to go and see Donaldson and Henry and Vicksburg and
Chattanooga, Chickamauga,
and Chickamauga and all of them places, And
I live here and I still don't go over that much. I mean, but then again, how many battlefields do I have in my backyard? Like that.
Yeah.
The new one. So I always live close to something Civil War, and Darren, you'll love this. This is a unique thing to live. So outside of my apartment building is U.S. Grant's supply line for the Overland Campaign.
Oh wow!
The wagon.
So are you still in Fredericksburg? You're on the outskirts.
Spotsylvania now.
Oh, you're in Spotsy. Back in Spotsy.
And you know me, I love Fredericksburg. I love Chancellorsville. Hell, I even love Manassas, which brings me to my next book in a minute. But I'm my big fascination with the Civil War is 1864 and 65. Overland Campaign, Petersburg, Appomattox. So that's where my big interest level lies. And so just like I leave every day and I make that right onto Courthouse Road, which was during the Civil War known as the Fredericksburg Road. When I go on that, my mind immediately, I'm like, oh, how many of Grant's wagons do I have to pass today to get to work? And it's funny if you think to commute to work just up to Manassas from here, I actually go through like 4 separate Civil War campaigns just to get to work. And that's what I'm measuring distance by now is like, how many campaigns do I have to go through to get to work?
I remember when I first drove, Tim came and picked me up the second time round from the airport. And I came over, dropped me off at Chris's, and he went, "Oh, you're going through the wilderness now." And my hair's just stood up on the back of my arm. Yeah. Just the thought of driving through there, it's just like, whoa.
I've got another book I'm reviewing.
The horror that happened.
By the way, the Second Manassas Campaign. Historians, 2 of them, I think one of which, Carolyn Janney, she's from UVA, and Kat Shively, I think, Catherine J. Shively, that's what it says in the book, is from Richmond. So VCU, I'm going to make sure I have that right. Yep, VCU. Have put together a great set of essays. A friend of mine, John Hennessy, happens to have a fantastic essay in here as well. I'm not terribly far through it yet because Petersburg is obviously on the brain. But the next one in line is the Second Manassas Campaign. These essays that are part of the campaign series that the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill has been putting out for a very long time. Very excited to have this one as I work at Manassas, and I need to always reinvigorate myself with something Manassas. So this is a great way to get involved with that. So I'm really excited to be reading this and reviewing that for them. But just another plug for Manassas. If you find yourself in the DC or Dulles region and you're getting off a plane to Dulles, we're not too far from Dulles Airport. So come see Manassas and Second Manassas. Great battlefield.
Oh, you've got to do that. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great battlefield.
It's the 2 battles I haven't actually ever touched on yet in a podcast, but I do plan on someday.
We should do that. I'm speaking on Second Manassas.
To be honest, Yeah. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I would
doing some research on Second right now. I actually have a talk in August at the Rappahannock Valley Civil War Roundtable. I'm going to be doing the Medal of Honor recipients of Second Manassas.
So talking of talking, actually, so Gina recently has taken the dive into public talking about monuments, and so I'm going to be doing the same. So we're going to be touring some of the local history groups around our local area. So I recently I've been going to some local talks about all sorts of different topics. One of them was the Battle of Sandwich, which happened in 12 something. But anyway,
I'm sorry. The Battle of what?
Sandwich. Yeah, Sandwich Bay. Yeah, there's a town called Sandwich in. I
love that. Making me hungry, Darren.
The Earl of Sandwich. But anyway, Yeah, so I'm going to be doing some public speaking myself at some point. So
Good.
I'm
You
working.
need to because you're a good speaker. I mean, we can. You're great. As soon as you get into that position where you're ready to go live, I mean, imagine just doing that in front of an audience. You're gonna kill it.
Oh yeah, I can't
I'm
wait. Yeah,
excited.
we're gonna try ourselves out of these smaller history events first, and then work our way up to wherever we need to be. But we just want to tell the stories.
I think we should do an unfiltered episode with you and Gina.
Oh, 100%.
I think we should put that in the works. Let's
Let's
schedule
do it.
that.
Let's
When
do
we
it.
get
Yeah.
off live tonight, we'll I'll send you a message. I'll send Gina one. Let's make that happen.
Okay. But
And
it would
Todd,
have to be
yes,
earlier in the daytime because Gina doesn't do late nights. But
okay.
yeah,
I'll pick a date that I'm not at work, and we'll make that happen.
100%.
Todd, I see your comment there. Yes, that was a fun day. Todd and I have actually gone through quite a few battlefields together. We did a whirlwind tour of Chancellorsville and Wilderness a few years ago, and then just recently, last time he was this side before the symposium, we did a Manassas tour, which was phenomenal. And I would love, Todd, if you ever get a chance to come back again, we need to do a more in-depth Manassas tour because I know some more sites now that we didn't even get to touch in that tour. So I owe you some cool sites. So next time I see you.
Awesome.
Mhm. Well, Darren, we're reaching our
Yeah, we
end.
are. That
was,
was the quickest hour ever.
I'm serious. Do
Yeah,
you have any
we're about
last
to
minute
get
closing
through.
thoughts for us before we sign off
Not
of this?
really. Just want to thank everyone for watching along, and yeah, hope you enjoy the podcast.
Likewise, and
Lots
it's
coming up, and it's exciting.
I think you'll see some more of these popping up sporadically. The cool thing about these kind of unfiltered conversations, we're never going to tell you when they happen. We just hope you see it live, and we hope you catch it later as a podcast too when it
Oh, 100%.
comes up on Spotify. But we're definitely. Oh, Todd just put something really important up. Yes, we did. Happenstance. Me and Todd and Barry was with you when we met. I was walking around Spotsy with a friend of mine, and Todd and Barry and I met at the Bloody Angle of all places in person. That's the first time I ever met Todd and Barry, and it was an instant click. Like we knew we were Civil War nerds, and we needed to do some more in depth of
Hot,
these areas here. So
hot off the press, Tyler. Do you remember last year when you did your little stand-up talk?
that's
Well, I
right.
recorded the whole thing, and I just haven't even looked at it yet. So hopefully, I'm going to get to that in the next couple of weeks, and
Awesome.
that
I'd love
will
to see that
hopefully
back.
be going on Emerging Civil War's YouTube channel.
Awesome. Yeah, that
So
was
yeah,
an
you
opportunity I could have
Chris
never
asked
even.
you to entertain everyone, didn't he? You why you wait for the next bus to return, and then you had to do the same before. So a lot of people, because you could only fit a certain amount of people on the trolley, um, and Tyler stepped up and I think he was talking about Upton. Is that right?
Always Upton,
Your
man.
hero.
My hero. And I love to say it as much as he's my hero. And that's how I closed all my talks that day was like, as much as I loved this guy and thought that he was the absolute bee's knees of the Civil War, I learned some things that weren't so great about the guy. And I think that's the coolest thing about studying history is you might go into it thinking you know all about it. And then you find out that you don't. And that was something that humbled me as a historian. I think helps to make all of us a better historian when we study history is that we do go in with this mindset of he's my hero, he's my favorite. Upton's still my number one general out of all of them. He's my favorite to research, but I found the flaws with Upton in this, and
Everyone's got flaws.
that's right.
Everyone.
And I think that was something that I was able to share with a lot of people, and I can't thank Chris and the ECW folks enough for
I
giving me the
forgot about
opportunity to
that
do that.
until you mentioned
That was
obviously
awesome.
the bloody angle. I just suddenly remembered that I've got that on the shelf, and I just need
Yeah,
to have a look at it and put it together and see where it goes.
heck yeah.
Yeah, look out for that on the Emergency War. And just quickly before we close out here, I'm
Mhm.
actually on a trip to Poland next week, and I'm going to Auschwitz to go and visit the
Oh, we're
awful
gonna have to
site. Yeah,
recap
I
that.
mean, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, I know, but it's something I feel as a historian I need to do. Um, yeah, so I'm going to go and visit, and I'm looking forward to Krakow, the city itself, because it's probably one of the best party towns in Europe, to be honest. But you're probably going to need that after visiting somewhere so
Yeah,
awful.
you are. I'll tell you what, take lots of pictures. I know it's not the most
Oh yeah, there
favorable thing,
will
but
be. Yeah, I'll do a
and
little, try and do what I can. You know.
then we'll when you get back,
Yeah.
let's plan a day to talk about.
Oh yeah.
I want the floor to be
I
yours.
mean, I
You know,
know
a little.
already that I'm going to get emotional before I even go there. You know, just
It's probably a very powerful place. I've never been, so I
wow.
can't speak for on it. I would be emotional myself if I
It was
stepped.
all Mark Wheatcross' fault because he went and. But it's so incredibly cheap to go there from the UK. We're talking £53 return flight. I mean, in dollars,
Whoa!
that's what I don't know, $80.
Wow!
It's nothing.
It's on my list, man. I really want to get over there at some point and experience that too.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that, and but yeah. Anyway, Tyler, it's been so good catching up again, mate.
Darren, it's been fantastic. I've missed this a lot, and I'm glad we've had the opportunity to do this tonight. And folks watching at home, make sure you guys check out Darren's podcast, American Civil War and UK History. As always, we are the Unfiltered Historian. Also, Darren and I have a lovely connection with the emerging Civil War. So if you
Go
guys
and
know
check
who
it
that
out.
is, or if you don't know who it is, go check them out because they're awesome. They will see you online and on the battlefield, just like we will see you online.